So I have no idea how this is going to work. I have no idea if this is going to work. So we may end up recording a podcast and it doesn't actually do anything.
It's fine as long as
Yeah.
people can hear.
Well, I'm not sure that they'll be able to because I don't even know if this is going to record, but hopefully it will. So anyway,
We'll give it a go.
um, we'll rock into the intro and we'll get going. And if shit hits the fan, then we re-record.
Absolutely. Just talk it over it again. It's not a problem.
Exactly. So welcome back to the HH Gaming Podcast, brought to you by Fiction and Saphira from hellhades.com. This week we are going to be talking about the current fusion that's going on in Raid Shadow Legends, along with some of the CVC stuff, and things like that, and we'll see where we go from there. One thing that I did want to let everybody know about before we get started into this, next week we are going to be joined by none other than Hell Hades himself. And exactly, and we're going to be doing a special episode. In this episode, we are going to be doing a frequently asked question or a Q&A session, basically with Hell Hades. So if you guys have any questions that you might want us to ask him, anything that you want to put out there, we're actually going to be creating a Discord channel specifically for the podcast. So make sure that you check out the Hell Hades Discord, go into the section for the podcast and post your questions, and we'll basically go through and pick some questions to ask him on next week's episode. So let's jump into it. Paul, how are you doing, dude?
Not bad. It's Friday. It's Euros for all you non-sports gamers, whatever you want to call it. So we got the quarterfinals, so I'm looking forward to that tonight. And,
I heard England did okay the other day.
Yes, as a Welsh person, it's a little bit painful, but
well, I guess you get to pick and choose depending on who's winning. Because
well, the way that it normally goes, because unless outside of rugby, Wales is it's kind of like a dead sport for everything. So you support Wales up until they're out, then all of a sudden your allegiances turn to England. But until then, it's death be to any other nation. But now it's kind of like just see. I hope they do well. Whether or not they can beat Italy, I don't know, but we'll see. Obviously, so Italy.
Who's your favorite to win overall at the moment?
Italy. I think they've got the right momentum. I think Denmark are going to fizzle out. I think Spain have their own problems, and I think Belgium have fitness issues, and I think England are playing too defensive, and Italy are they just seem to have the right momentum. So they haven't lost in 30 games. They haven't lost since 2018. So like they hadn't conceded since like 10 hours of gameplay up until the other day. So, sports aside, that's what I'm looking forward to tonight. But and also the fusion has just started. So
it has indeed
another thing.
And it's a weird one as well. Because we've just had the calendar released. It looks like there is an event every single day.
Which I kind of like, because I think having remember the last fusion, we had basically 2 days where we had nothing to do because either you'd already done the event, or maybe it was a summon rush or something like that. And then we had this kind of peak of 2 days, and all of a sudden we had to do both Fire Night and champion training at the same time. And it's kind of like, well, I haven't really got time necessarily, or I don't really want to spend time devoting it to doing Fire Night as well as having to do champion training, which is the lethargic one. But what I would say about this calendar, which I think is important, a lot of people will tend to focus on the summon rush and the chase. I don't really want to have to pull shards. I don't actually think that's the big thing here. The big thing about this calendar is you only need to get 5 points from training. So you can completely skip training. Training events right now, I think, are the worst, because
they can be brutal.
Yeah, like, you probably look at your roster now and you go, who am I leveling next? And you end up leveling people because you need the points, not because you need to invest in the champion. And I think especially a lot of endgame players are probably going to get to that, where it's almost like, who am I going to invest in now? So, but yeah, that's the good thing to know. If people want to just focus on the shard pulling, they can easily skip. You only need 5 points if you don't win any tournaments. If you win a tournament, then you probably don't even need to do any training for this.
That's quite nice. And looking at that, the champion training event falls on the 5th, so it starts on Monday.
Yeah. So the one to look out for probably is the 2 times ancient, which is in a week's time.
Yep.
Because obviously, normally when they do a summon like this, they'll do a training tournament or an event a couple of days after, and I think that's when people probably want to invest, because that's when you're most likely to get more epics. And so if you're going to choose, if you want to choose which training event you want to do, it might pay you to wait for the one after your ancients in case you get a champion that you actually want to invest in, rather than invest in a champion you go, well, it's mediocre, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
But that's obviously assuming you can complete every other tournament. So if you want to skip Ice Golem, then you obviously need to find 5 more tokens elsewhere. So don't just sit here and assume, oh, well, Zaf said I only need to do 5 points in training. That's assuming that you get everything. You complete all the summon rush and you get all the training.
Hate thread.
Yeah. So I mean, you could easily just skip some summon rush. Like, there's a balance. You can skip some summon rush or some champion chase and just do a full training tournament or event. So, but yeah, it's a lot of flexibility. I think these fragment fusions, I don't know about what you think about it, but I find that they're much more laid back than a traditional fusion. Because, if you miss one tournament, normally you can make up, there's a little bit of leeway there. You're not basically dead and buried.
Yeah, and I think as well as that, with the traditional fusion events, if you're not going to blow all of your resources, or if you don't have the resources to go all out and get the epics, you actually still end up using basically the same amount of resources with leveling the rares to then make the epics, and then and things like that. So I actually think that you are right there, that these fragment style fusions are a lot easier on players' resources.
Time. Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily resources. It's more time, like, because potion keeps 20 now have made the potion farming issue a bit of a non-factor.
Yeah,
it's so much easier to get potions than it ever has been. And I think generally because they're only ever releasing 4 of the same type, you've got less tournaments you need to necessarily go to, because you can choose if you wanted to just fuse to chase the epic, not keep the duplicate. It means you don't even need to make those 4. So there's options. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it's the time of having to go and farm the food to do all the extras into the epics and the epics into 5-star and fuse, and also money. Silver wise, it's almost 5 million or so just for something like silly like that to fuse it, a couple of million silver. So, but yeah, so I don't know about you, but I'm definitely going for the Sylph, the Grim.
Yeah, so I think initial thoughts on him was that he wasn't going to be that great a champion, but after looking at the actual damage that the guy does, seems like he's definitely going to be, I guess, an asset for people.
I don't subscribe to this notion that he is designed like the way that Plarium have announced him as almost like this control champion, because he's got an A1 20% chance to provoke or something low like that.
Yeah.
And we know from using Drexar that doesn't matter how many times the Nether Spider hits it, sometimes it just doesn't apply HP burn. And so it's the same concept of provoke. Is a less chance, the 20% chance to apply provoke is incredibly low.
Yeah.
So if you're running him as he's solo Scarab, I think he'll be excellent because he can buff his own damage with his A3, keep his shield going. Well, not buff his own damage, so he's HP basically, but he can basically give himself defense buff, which someone like Vergis can't do once everyone's dead. So I definitely think stuff like that, but I don't subscribe to him being like this. He's going to control all the waves. It's just not going to happen.
No. And I mean, looking through what we've said about him on the site, I mean, obviously he's going to excel on places such as Scarab Boss and things like that in Doom Tower. But outside of Doom Tower and Faction Wars, which is kind of an obvious choice for really any legendary, where do you think he's going to excel in the game?
So obviously his A2, if you set it up, is probably the hardest hitting AoE HP based. Well, it is the hardest hitting AoE HP based.
Yep.
We know his multiplier is 0.25 of his HP on one hit. So basically, if you hit twice, the requirements of that is any form of control. It's quite open, really. You can run, if you've got a Salad or Shamael, you can set him up that way. If you've got Durgo, can set him up. Although I would recommend not freeze because you have that loss of damage.
Yeah, sure.
But provokes Umbral would be excellent with it. So there's loads of options to enable that nuke. As he's HP based, you can't lose damage. You can't gain it, but you can also can't lose it from a buff. So he from our analysis using the for science club and all the math, he's going to hit probably about twice as hard as the Cernic.
Wow.
Which is hard, and it
Yeah,
also
I mean,
looks freaking cool.
my Cernic hits hard, so
yeah. So I mean, his first hit will hit about the same as Cernic.
Okay.
And then the second hit will hit basically the same because it's 2 hits. There's a common theme when there's an extra hit. It tends to hit really hard because of the conditional base. They just don't really do the math. So outside of Doom Tower, I think he can be a great wave damage carry for sure.
Yep.
Because he's HP based, he's easy to keep alive. He does bring ally protect, so he'll keep your team alive. He could be an arena nuker. Whether or not he can do it at plat, is left to be questioned. But there's champions that can set him up. Most people, like myself, I run Arbiter into Umbral.
Okay.
So I could easily just run him as my nuker instead of someone like Skullcrown. Okay, affinity issues, something to keep an eye on, but
sure.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's definitely worth going.
Is force affinity.
Yes, he is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Is he force or spirit?
He's force.
Force.
I believe.
Yeah, so that's.
I just had to double check that.
Yeah,
I've got a screen up here with him up there. So.
So he's great into magic. Probably.
Which is good because
Duchess.
A lot of people obviously run magic champions because they tend to be
all
the
nukers are.
Yeah, exactly.
Thunder, Foley, outside of Ethos, they're all magic based.
Yeah, so he's gonna have a good time against those sort of comps, definitely.
I think if people want to use him as an arena nuke, they just need a strategy to deal with Duchess comps because he is going to suffer going into a Duchess comp. He's weak affinity, it's AoE.
Yeah.
One kind of provisional strategy that I've got in my head is running Shamael. So Shamael comes in and nukes Duchess out because no one can really survive against a triple buffed Shamael A2. And then because he's killed someone, he'll apply the fear to everyone, which sets up First Self A2. So I think that's a potential solution. Whether or not I haven't tested it yet, so I don't have access to the test server and like the boss. But that's a potential idea if you can tune it and get the gear right. But again, he should be relatively easy to gear because all you need to build is HP and crit damage and crit rate. Like doesn't need accuracy because you're not going to roll your out provoke. It doesn't need anything else. Speed is the only other thing. So you just build him like a typical nuker, but instead of worrying about attack, you just focus HP everywhere.
Awesome.
So. Yeah, it's definitely. I think when people first saw it come out, I don't know about you, but I thought, it's a bit. My initial thought was this removes the need for War Chief, and then I realized, hang on, it's not as good as War Chief probably.
No.
On Magma Dragon, but certainly Scaraboss. And then when we looked at I had an inkling when it was extra hit because of the notion that extra hit does a lot of damage. So I asked Hell Hades to go and run a quick test, and we quickly realized it was going to hit hard. Before we had access to the actual multipliers. So I think it's not an essential fusion, but it's a great addition to anyone's roster as an option.
I think the thing is with fusions, and I know people are pretty drained from the constant flow of them that we've had, is if you can get them, you should. Because chances are you'll regret it if you don't.
It's a free legendary.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at Brogni. Brogni was one which I literally couldn't get. I didn't have the time in the day to do the fusion.
It was hard.
It was hard, and it was right at a time when I was just too busy to do it. And now the potential damage is done. Like by not having that champion, you see all these insane comps coming out in Clan Boss now. With Brogni, and I can't do them.
He's ridiculous. I mean, he basically makes Dwarf Faction Wars a joke.
Yeah,
like I went from boss 2 all the way through to nearly finishing boss 3, and he wasn't even mastered or 60 just because of the value he brings. He's great in Clan Boss. I put him in all my comps. He's a Seer buff feeder. It's just he does what Duchess does with block debuff. Is so good. Like it's the best. It's probably the best fusion they've ever done. But it was also the worst event they've ever done. So let's hope we never have to deal with that again because that was horrific.
Yeah, it was tough.
Fragment mixed with fusion, that's not a good future that I ever want to experience.
No.
So, and again, I think the point you made, I think the point you raised is actually a good one. I think we've seen this in Discord a lot about people saying, "Oh, another fusion, another fusion." In actual data wise, they're not running more fusion than they've ever run before.
Sure.
I think it's clan versus clan that's caused all of this,
Yeah.
because by Thursday in a clan versus clan week, I'm exhausted because it
Yep.
feels like you have to always monitor it. Are we going to hit the milestones? Have we got enough points? Do I need to do more 3v3? Do I need to do faction wars 21s? I can't sit there for 20 minutes every time doing a skinwalker faction wars 21, and it's such a significant amount of points, booking, ascending. And I think that has tired the community out more than anything. And because the rewards are so valuable, you almost feel obligated to participate. Whereas at least with fusions and stuff, there's no obligation. You don't feel like you're not going to get anything other than the champion. People might say, let's face it, the Pixneal fusion. Nobody really missed out on anything there.
No.
If you went for it, great. If you didn't, you haven't lost anything. You miss a
Yeah.
clan versus clan, that's a lot of rewards you're missing out on.
Well, as that, it's not just your account that it's impacting; it's your entire clans. So if you aren't putting in the effort, you're almost letting your. I mean, obviously, it depends on what situation you've got with your clan. But I know our clan is effectively, the staff from the website and friends. We're a very close knit bunch. And if you're not putting in the effort, it's like you're letting your friends down because they're there trying to grind it out. And you need to make sure that you're putting in your part for them as well.
And I think it just creates this. We're pretty tight knit. We don't set any expectations for anyone. I think that's how it should be. If you can't do it, life is more important than a clan versus clan tournament.
Yeah.
However, you immediately see the temptation to start challenging people. We could have got this reward, or we could have won this tournament if you just put a little bit more extra effort in. And it's you sit there and you think, oh, I feel terrible for thinking that, but you can see the natural draw that it's going to have, and you already start seeing this elitist concept that if you don't hit 180,000 points, you're out. I'm like, wow, okay, well, you're not worth. You basically min-max. I'm not against that per se, because if a clan wants to do that, then you know what you're subscribing to, as long as they advertise that up front.
Sure.
But I don't think it's a healthy way to run clans. Like the tournament structure in its current mode it's not good. Like if you haven't got time to do it, you almost feel like you're letting people down.
So if you were putting together like a strategy guide for the CVC that just happened, what process, I guess, because I mean you smash the points every CVC that we do.
I hit probably about 250 to 300, unless we did that last mystery shard where I went mental and got 700,000.
Yeah, but like how would you advise that somebody approaches CVC without, I guess, throwing their bank account at it?
I don't really think you need to spend like a lot of, if you want to win, then you probably need to spend. But to be honest, the clan versus clan is all about milestone 10 in terms of the rewards. If you're at tier 6, you're getting double savage 6-star. It might take you 1,000 runs to get to savage 6-star and finite. So it's worth getting to that milestone. If you get to that and you're winning the tournament, great. If you're not, well, sucks. That's life, because you can never guarantee where the things are going to sit. Like this time it's been a reaction banners. Next time it might be a reaction ring as a second place. It just varies. That's just the run of the mill. It's all about planning ahead, and it sucks, but it's also about waiting. So you never book outside of clan versus clan now. You don't upgrade Great Hall outside of clan versus clan now. You don't use your forged materials unless you really need to outside of clan versus clan now. The idea is then when you get to it, normally you would end up, if you're in gold 4 and you're farming your stuff every day, and you're not spending gems, but you're just doing your daily refresh and your overnight refresh, you can get around about 1,500 to 2,000, sometimes 2,500 gold medals. So if you're in my position where I've got a bunch of level 6s and then a bunch of level 10s, I'm upgrading resist now. So I can go, sometimes I'll go 6, 7, 8, sometimes I'll go 9, 10. But those combinations will get you a bunch of points. Booking, normally I have an epic or a legendary I want to book. So I'll just save up my books. I'll end up with about 5 to 10 legendaries, about 15 to 20 epics just by doing tournament events, normal events. I don't go for every tournament and every event. I'll select what I want to do. but
Mixed
normally
in
I'll
with
do
some
dungeons.
luck from Clan Boss.
Exactly, yeah. So there's your rewards for that. The other thing that this time I did more that I didn't pay attention to last time is ascending. So if you
Okay.
ascend a 6-star level legendary, you're going to get 2,500 points. So
Okay.
unless you really need to, you should probably hold back ascension level 5 and 6.
Yeah.
1 to 4 is quite low. We're talking 500 points. It's not significant, but certainly 5 to 6. So I fully ascended Herndig and I got 4,400 points for clan versus clan.
Oh wow. That's
So,
that's good.
if you save even the 6-starring of the champion, then that's more points again. So it's just about protecting your resources and then burning them all in those 2 days. And then doing faction wars 21/20 is huge.
And then be ready for a
more.
fusion and
Yeah.
and 2 times
it's
summoning
non-stop.
events.
This is what I mean. Like clan versus clan makes you feel like I finally got through clan versus clan, and literally 2 days after clan versus clan, we've got a fusion tournament.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now we're going to that cycle. But yeah, that's what I would suggest to people. Don't sit there and think you need to spend on clan versus clan. If everyone just does, if you do half your faction wars 21s, book your champions during that period, use your Great Hall medals, ascend the champions you maybe you've got sitting there, even your 5 stars, just ascend them to 5-star. You can pick up about 20,000 points there. Use your forged materials. And the other big one then is 3v3 arena. Try and get yourself up to like silver 2, silver 3, silver 4, because if you're clever, and the way we do it in our clan, the night before the reset, if you go into the shop and go into the gem part, buy a refill from the shop, that will go into your inventory, your mailbox, rather than straight refresh. If you do it through clan versus 3v3, it'll straight refresh. If you just do it through the shop, you'll then have a full refill only for 15 gems. You can then use your reset when it starts. Then you can use the one you bought yesterday. And then you can use your free advanced missions. And then you can also get another one for 15 gems. So you can have a very low investment. And that is about, like, if you're, I think silver 4 or silver 3 is about 495 points a 3 win.
Yep.
So you imagine you've got 40 times whatever that is. What's 40 times 494? That's a lot of points. That's where we lose our clan versus clan. Sometimes we're up against people who are in gold 2, gold 3, gold 4. And they just accumulate points from 3v3s because it's relatively cheap to refresh. It's like 15 gems and 40 gems. So 65 gems, you're earning like 20 to 30,000 points. So that would be my sort of cliff notes of how to quickly win in clan versus clan. And all you need to do in a clan is get to 180 points, 180,000 points. If each member does that, you've got your milestone 10. And then if you win, great. If you don't, well, next time. It's not the end of the world.
Sure. No, that's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so I mean, that's kind of the topics that we were going to cover this week gone over. Obviously, another reminder to you guys that next week we are having Hell Hades on the show. So make sure that you check out the Discord channel. Make sure that you post any questions that you want us to ask in the Q&A session with Hell Hades. Should be interesting. There's no limit on the questions you want to ask. It doesn't have to be about raid. It can be about the business side of things. It can be what he likes to eat. Who knows? Let's have some fun with it. Let's ask some questions that really put him on the spot. We're not going to let him pick and choose which questions we ask. We will go through and
no. we're gonna audit them first, and then we'll find the if you want to send some juicy ones, don't send thirsty ones though. That's just weird. Be clean about it.
But yeah, so again, this week's episode has been recorded with cams for the first time. So it will be up on the YouTube channel. It'll be up a couple of days after this goes live on Spotify. So you can check it out on the YouTube channel. It's hosted on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/fiction. And again, you can support the podcast on our Patreon, which the links will be in the descriptions and stuff. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, guys. And we will see you next week.